There are a couple of different ways of adding value to a hotel. I'll start from, I think, what are the largest value adds and the most involved, and then work down. The biggest value add is commonly a rebrand. So that would be taking especially when you're upbranding. So that would be taking for example, maybe a Best Western. I looked at a deal like this the other day in Atlanta. There's a Best Western, and it was maybe about 15 years old, and you can rebrand it. You come in and you say, Best Western's a good brand, decent brand, but we know that this market would do better, and this hotel would do better if it was, let's call it a Marriott. It's kind of those bands of brands that you have. And so you go from, brand here to this brand. And so you take that Marriott, you take that Best Western, and it's, 115 keys, and you go and get Marriott's standards, and Marriott says, maybe the rooms are the right size, or maybe, you have to combine some into more suites. You knock down a couple walls or do a couple of connecting rooms. Maybe you redo the lobby a little bit, the pool's probably fine, expand the fitness area, whatever it takes to get from a Best Western maybe to a Fairfield from the Marriott side. And so you go in and you do this. When you want to do a rebrand, they call it a PIP, PIP, which is a property improvement plan. And they'll say, hey, here's the Fairfield PIP. You do all of these things, every door handle has to have this type of lock, and, the TVs, they can't be 48 inch, it's 55 inch. And the Wi-Fi has to be, Cat 5 or Cat 6, and all the things that you can imagine, the wallpaper, and the brand of treadmill, and the how large your lobby, vegetables are, all those kind of things. They give you it, and you say, here you go, and you look at it, and the analysis you do on from a value add side, you say, okay, it's going to cost us about $1.5 million. Let's say it's probably a little more than that. Let's say it's $2 million, maybe on a 100-room key. That's on a 100-room hotel. That's on average $20,000 per room, right, including the common areas and all that. It's about $2 million for us to take this Best Western and up-brand it. Maybe it changes to a different brand into a Marriott and into a Fairfield. And by putting that $2 million in, we look at the market, look at the studies, look at what other Marriotts are doing. Our hotel is going to go from doing $1.5 million in revenue to $2.5 million, almost double its revenue. And so then you look at, okay, when do we recoup that? And likely in 3 or 4 years, you're in the positive. That's a real common upbrand, and that exists at basically every level of upbranding or reflagging. So you can go from maybe Motel 6 to a Best Western, from Best Western to the next one, and so on and so forth. Luxury can also do this, but typically it's a little bit more expensive. So you won't necessarily always see. It's kind of rare to see, let's say, a JW Marriott go to a Ritz-Carlton Marriott, or a full-service Hilton go to a Waldorf from Hilton. That's kind of rare, typically because luxury is unique enough that the investment it would take to take a hotel that maybe wasn't built for luxury to make it luxury is often prohibitive. It's almost like you're having to rebuild the whole thing, or demolish a bunch of rooms and add wings. So anyway, the PIP, though, from a reflagging perspective, is really common. There's a couple of subnotes, though, and what can also make it really attractive when you're adding value when you're doing a PIP is that brands are known for offering key money to operators or to owners who are going to be rebranding or looking to put a new brand on a hotel. Key money is where the hotel gives you pays you typically at closing or at opening, at C of O or at rebranding when you're finished with that. They'll pay you a sum of money to basically become their brand. So let's say I had a hotel and it's maybe it's independent, and I'm like, what brand should I put in here? And I'm thinking about how to upbrand it because I want to take it from independent and push it to a brand where you get all the marketing power and all that traffic. And I go to Marriott and I say, hey, I think this could be a good Courtyard. And Marriott will look at it and they'll say, we've really been wanting to get into this market. It's kind of hard to build here. We don't think there's going to be any new built Marriotts. We think that the only way we're going to put a Marriott here is by having a conversion. If you make this a Marriott, we will give you $500K once it's completed, and that's what's called key money, and that's locking in that it'll be a Marriott and it'll guarantee a Marriott. And the reason the brands do that is they just do it net present value calculation. They say, okay, this is gonna be a Marriott, and we'll put a franchise agreement on it for 20 years. Over 20 years, this hotel's gonna do $5 million a year. We charge 8% interest. We're gonna make $400K a year on this thing for the next 20 years, putting $500K down today to guarantee that, no brainer. Then you might go to Hilton and say, Hilton, I have this courtyard in hand. They have some key money. Is Hilton Garden Inn an available flag in this area? Maybe they have the same calculation. Now, yeah, we want to be in that area. There's really no new build. If you're going to do conversion, we'll give you some key money. We'll give you 750K, right? And then you kind of figure that out. So doing a rebranding or reflagging through a PIP, big value add. And going along with the PIP, just doing a normal PIP is also value add you can do with the hotel. So you also have PIPs on a regular basis, property improvement plans, in order to maintain your flag. So if you have a new built hotel, it's often on a 7 or 4, and every 7 years you have to do something. So you build a hotel 7 years now, going down the road, the carpet's kind of stained, there's a lot of patch jobs on the walls, the beds are a little bit sunken, those kind of things. And the brand says, hey, you have a 7-year PIP coming up. You got to go through and you got to replace all the case goods, all the soft goods, or all the beds, all the carpets, every piece of furniture in that room. You can leave the kitchen, you can leave the bathrooms alone, but you got to replace the curtains. Those kind of things. Those are often also significant value adds. Where, for one, on the website, when you book a hotel, it'll often say newly renovated. That's what they're referring to. It's often that they've completed this PIP for the hotel recently. And so when people go to book a hotel, I get to stay in the newly renovated hotel and everything's nice and shiny and up to the newest design standards and all that kind of stuff. So that's a common also value add, where we've gone through several of those, going through several of them right now, where buy a hotel, replace all the signage, all looks nice, redo all the beds. And that does often come with a bump in pricing power that you can charge for that room. Maybe it's 15-20%, depending on how often other people have been renovated and who's around. So rebranding, completely changing brand, especially up branding, doing a PIP to an existing hotel. There's a couple of other ways that you add value to hotels. One, which is also a fairly large lift, but also can end up having massive value adds, is adding rooms. So adding key counts. This can be both development, right? You have a 80-room hotel sitting on 3 acres, and you can add especially on something like an extended stay property where they're all kind of differently siloed. You can just throw up another 20-25 keys, and that can increase the value of the property pretty significantly. You obviously look at absorption and whether the market can handle it, but adding keys. Sometimes you can add value by adding certain amenities. So we had a unique property in Eastern Texas. It's a really big lawyer town. Bunch of lawyers descend on this, a very famous federal courthouse that's there. And the lawyers want a larger meeting space, bigger than our brand called for. So our brand that we had there, only called for one executive boardroom that was, 400 square feet. The lawyers were constantly saying, hey, we could use a lot more than that for our game, as we're doing our war rooms and figuring out trials and all this kind of stuff. And so we actually converted 2 of our hotel rooms into a larger meeting space room. So being able to kind of move around keys and amenities, maybe expanding meeting rooms, being able to lock off some of the breakfast areas for an additional kind of F&B outlet where people can meet at and maybe reserve for baby showers, things like that. Those kind of things are like physical changes to the facilities that you're making. And then a very large value add, but low cost. It's one of the reasons why I really like the hotel world, because all those other things that I mentioned are kind of true for a lot of real estate things, right? Yeah, most will recognize that you have an office building, you go and pay and put new flooring in, add some amenities, like you're going to charge more. You have apartments, you go in, renovate, put better appliances and whatever, you're going to be able to charge more. On the hotel side, the lowest cost, and what can often sometimes be sometimes the highest value add, is on the operations side. So a hotel will have an operator who runs the hotel, right? They manage the sales, they manage the payroll, they hire the cleaners, they direct the expenses, they oversee all of the things that go on inside a hotel on a day-to-day basis. A real big value add is from the operational side. So the real estate side is common to hotels, common to all types of real estate asset classes, but it's the business side of the hotel, the actual operations, where you can see massive value. I'll give you a quick example. We bought a hotel in South Dallas, and we bought it from the original developer. Developer built it, and it was about 3 years after he kind of built it. During stabilization is when COVID hit, so running some issues there. They were mainly a developer, not really an operator. They had 3, maybe 4 hotels that they had all built, and then they're looking to sell them. And we went in and we were looking at it, and this hotel was doing about 2.2 to 2.3 million top line a year. And it was profiting. So that 2.3 million revenue that would make, it was profiting maybe 700K, right? About less than a third. And so we went in there and started looking at it, interviewing the employees, talking to the developer about the plan and all that. And one thing we noticed was that they were running the hotel at an extremely high occupancy. They're running the hotel at about between 90 to 100% occupancy on a monthly basis. And so, and they were the only, it was a Marriott hotel. They were the only Marriott hotel in that market. So the only other hotels that you could stay in that area. And it was kind of a key location in between Dallas and then some of the other. So a lot of people would come there and stay there. If they didn't have to actually go to downtown Dallas, but they were just kind of passing through, it's a lot better to stay kind of on the outskirts of Dallas than actually going into the downtown area. And we noticed that they were only a Marriott hotel, but they were basically just as expensive as the Best Western, La Quinta. They weren't priced much high above that. So we bought it. And our thesis was, we're going to operate it. We're going to manage it. We're going to do a couple things. One is, we want to see how far we can push ADR, the rate, average daily rate. How high can we actually push it? And you can do this literally with the switch of, flip of the switch. You go in there and say, hey, instead of charging $100 tonight, we're charging $200, like literally just like that. And so first thing we said, okay, first of all, we're going to take the ADR, which is around $100, $101. So what happens if we go to 150, 50% increase in ADR? We think that occupancy is going to drop probably from 90% to maybe 70, 75%. But we'll more than make up for that by increasing 50% on revenue. Right. And so we go there and we start taking these operations changes. First is that the occupancy barely dropped at all, which was the first surprise to us. We went from 95%, 90% to like 87%, even though we're charging 50% higher. Part of the reason was almost everyone that was coming through there were these large trucking companies, construction companies. They just had these long extended relationships with Marriott, charging an extra $30, $40, $50. Was not going to change that they were going to then all of a sudden go to IHG, which they had no relationship with, or some of these other companies. So there was all this kind of corporate type of travel, and so it didn't affect it at all. Then the other thing we looked at was we looked at their employee count. We said this is a 78-room hotel, and it has 25 full-time employees. That is, if you know hotels, that's an extremely high. I mean, that is, two employees per, or one employee for every 3 rooms. I mean, that is incredibly high. So we cut down employee count. Part of it was, they had third-party laborers, so they were, some of that was full-time, but it was through a third-party, contracting agency. So they would go in there, instead of you hiring and training a local housekeeper, they go to a third-party company and say, hey, we need housekeepers. Based on a full-time basis, that third-party company then goes and hires housekeepers, and obviously they have to charge a spread. So now they're paying $19, $20 an hour for a housekeeper, when in reality, the housekeeper themselves are only taking home $13 or $14, and the third-party company is taking a spread. And so we said, we're going to stop all third-party labor. We're going to hire everyone directly ourselves. Yeah, it's a little bit more work to train and hire and all that, but we can do that in-house. We're going to cut down the number of people that we have. We're going to get rid of partly that they had some weird overtime work where they had these part-time people, this third-party management. But then when that third-party management company ran into some issues, they just had overtime. Anyway, whole bunch of issues. We cut them down to about 13 folks, full-time, a couple part-time, floaters as needed. They also didn't have scale, right? So this company had a salesperson that's a salesperson might make 60, 70K for a small hotel like that. And that was their only hotel they were doing sales at. And we had a portfolio of 1,200 keys across a dozen hotels. And so we said, we have a couple of hotels. We have one hotel that was 30 minutes away. We're going to use that director of sales, and we're going to have him do both, right? They're non-competing brands. So there's, in terms of the conflicts of interest and that kind of thing, they're also different markets. They're about 30 minutes away, but really one was a Dallas market and one was kind of the only place to go outside of Dallas when you're driving through and trucking and shipping and all that. And so we had our director of sales cluster. It's called cluster management, cluster between the two, or complex management, complex between the two properties. His salary goes up 10K, but now you have an immediate 50K, savings. We also implement a number of expense. We did a whole bunch of all of our kind of operational value adds that we normally put into a hotel, including, having GMs work on their expense reports and training night audit to, look carefully at reconciliation, a whole bunch of different things. Within 18 months, that hotel is now doing $3 million top line, a 50% increase in revenue, and its NOI is up by about 3 times. We're flowing about half of that through. And so you're just seeing, you apply the same cap rate, you're talking about a multiple many, many, many times higher of what we bought it for, almost 3x value of what you buy it for in 18 months. That is a very unique thing about hotels, is that because of that business component, you implement sales, for example, that our DOS is very, very good and has a number of tech assisted methods of sales. Within the first 6 months, we drove $400K of additional revenue to that hotel just through their sales efforts. very hard to do outside of a hotel class to drive an extra 500K of revenue without adding rooms. Or I mean, we paid the DOS an extra 10K and drove 400K revenue. I mean, we're getting a 40-to-1 return on our dollar. Very difficult to do in a traditional real estate asset class. But something like hotels, which has that business side, is where you'll see a lot of value add for cheap. So those are kind of the different types of value adds that you see. Operational, you have the operational value add. You have the rebranding, you have the upbranding, you have the adding the keys and kind of playing with the amenities. Those I think the large buckets that all value adds typically fall into. The time that you would see a downgrade on a flag is typically where the franchise is going to pull the flag. So you're not going to renew. This happened to us it happened to a hotel that we were looking at in West Texas, kind of oil and gas country. And we're looking at a hotel. It was a Hilton branded lower tier flag. And another one got built down the street. And so that hotel knew, or was getting built, that hotel knew that in basically 2 years, Hilton would not renew your flag. Let's say it was I can't remember now, let's say it was a Hampton Inn. Hilton said, they had already told them in 2 years, you won't be a Hampton Inn anymore. So in that case, you kind of look around, and sometimes one of the benefits of downgrading is that you'll get lower franchise fees. So there's different franchise fee costs. And so sometimes you might go to a lower tier flag and realize, hey, and this hotel may have worked. We ended up not buying it, but this one may have worked. They looked around and said, look, whether we're a Hilton paying 8-9% franchise fee, or whether we're some kind of upstart hotel paying 4% franchise fee because they really want to be in that market because they only have 50 hotels nationwide instead of 5,000 hotels nationwide, or maybe that brand will pay me key money to become a slightly lower brand. Those are the kind of things where it makes sense to kind of down brand, where you either have limited supply, so you're going to get your demand. Just the fact that you have a hotel there, people are going to go there. You see this, and also sometimes these boutique areas, resort areas, they know, hey, whether I'm this brand or that brand, just I can down brand, and maybe I'll be the nicest of the down brands. We've all probably walked into a hotel and said, this is a really nice La Quinta, right? Or walk into a hotel and say, this is kind of a crappy Courtyard. Sometimes you get people on the edges there. And so those are the times where we think about down branding. Most of the time you don't want to do that, because what the consumer is used to paying for a down brand is going to be less than what you had if you're going from whatever tier you're at going down. There's some nuance around brands that are on the up and up and brands on the down down. Brands themselves go through 6 cycles. We can talk about this another time. Like Sheraton is kind of the redheaded stepchild of all Marriott brands. I mean, the fact is that you talk to lenders and they're like, it's a Sheraton brand. Like, yeah, it's a Marriott, but it's really a Sheraton brand that got acquired. That's kind of like, and then you talk to other lenders that are, Margaritavilles. They're kind of the new and upcoming thing, and they're just, super hot, and people are paying, crazy prices to stay there. So there's kind of some nuance there, but in general, that's what you would consider a down brand. Maybe you have lower franchise fees, or maybe a flag's getting pulled and you kind of have no other option. But most of the time, there's a lot of brands out there, so you do have, the owners have some decent negotiation power. I would think the most compelling actually value add is when you can go to a down brand, get key money, and you reduce your franchise fees, and you think that either your revenue will stay the same, or any hit in revenue you take will be offset or mitigated, by those 2 other considerations. When you're looking at increasing revenue, the most obvious, and one that is sometimes not always tried, is by increasing your ADR in your back-end system, whatever you use. So many hotels, all different kind of systems. Hilton has their Grow, and Marriott has their whatever. And what typically happens in a hotel, especially if you maybe have just a couple, and even when you have a decent amount, you'll have a revenue manager. And the revenue manager is someone who will sit over, for example, we have a couple of different revenue managers. Usually they're at a geographic location. Maybe they have 10 hotels or 12 hotels or 15 hotels of, South Dallas, kind of limited service, select service hotels. And you meet with them weekly. And when you meet with them, one of the things they're looking at on every single day, what are other hotels charging in the comp set? They're looking at, what are you charging? What is your occupancy? What is your RevPAR? They're looking at these entities, these metrics. And what we always tell them, if we are a premium brand, which is one of the reasons why we like to be, a Marriott, a Hilton, IHG brand on the select service side. If we're a premium brand, we know that we should be at the top of the market. And in some instances, we should be the top of the market. And most of the time, we want to find where that is. That's the first thing we do. And it's funny, it seems obvious, but I can't tell you how many times we go to revenue managers and say, hey, put us to the top of the market. Whatever the comp set is charging, charge 10% more. for this 4 nights or weekend. And I can't tell you how many times I said, "Oh, we never tried that with this hotel." I mean, it's been owned for 15 years, and it had 3 different owners, and most of the owners are really looking at just having occupancy, whatever else, and we say, "Look, let's just bump it up." And as you bump it up, you just keep an eye on the occupancy, right? And there's kind of an efficient curve of how much occupancy you want. You don't want to go down to 10% or whatever it is, but sometimes you only drop by 2 or 3 percentage points, but you went up by 10%. And so that's the most common way is you talk to the revenue manager and say, "Hey," and usually come up with the reasons why. Look, we're the only Marriott in this area, we're the newest hotel, or whatever else, and having a good relationship with the revenue manager and having a good revenue manager. We've had some that are like, "No, your hotel can't do that, blah, blah, blah. We don't think you can sustain that." We say, let's try it for 4 days, try it for a week and see what happens. A lot of times you can immediately see 10, 15, on this one hotel, it's almost a 50% increase in revenue by literally just putting us at top of the market. And then what ends up happening is everyone else comes up. And so you establish your rate integrity. One of the worst things that happens is when you start dropping rate, people remember that and they say, "Hey, I'm so you have repeat customers, things like that." And they say, "I used to spend $78 here. What's going on?" And then they don't like that you go up. If you establish a rate integrity at the top end, for example, this Marriott in Dallas, our Waxahachie hotel, we became the most expensive hotel in that market. Then everyone else came up $10 below us, and we still maintained our top. Now the entire market raised their rates, and we were still able to establish our revenue. And then we were able to, every once in a while you take these flyers with things higher. So one is just revenue manager. Telling them, "Hey, let's see where our actual ceiling is," and you got to test that, throughout the year because as things happen, hotels shut down, hotels change, people have bad experiences. Those kind of things will change how much of a ability you have to, let's say, call it your hotel is less elastic in pricing, right? In economics, right? How sensitive are consumers to your price? If everything is truly a commodity, which hotels are not, if everything is truly a commodity, then it's just a race to the bottom. But because hotels have brand loyalty and different amenities and different reputations and corporate contracts and all those kind of things, you can prove out the inelasticity of your hotel product. Another way that you increase revenue is through sales. So it's direct sales. There are various. This is probably where you see the most tech opportunities to implement tech into the sales process. A lot of hotels do not. In fact, of our dozen select service hotels that we bought, maybe 2 had really good CRM systems for sales. They were tracking who they were reaching out to. They were tracking responses. They were tracking what their contracts were previously with us, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of hotels, it's someone gave them a phone book and they're just calling through, not tracking much, just trying to that kind of thing. And partly that's how the hotel operator incentivizes sales folks, and there's a whole bunch of other things we can go into. But direct sales works a couple different ways. When we think about a hotel's room revenue on their line item, there's a further breakdown, which is where is that revenue coming from? What kind of sources is it coming from? At broad level, you can think about it as, you have your corporate group. These are people who are, maybe there's multiple of them for multiple nights. Maybe it's recurring. We have this for a lot of our law firm clients in our hotel that's near a large federal courthouse, where we know, hey, law firm X, they're going to be here for 60 days and a team of 4, right? Ton of room nights. And you want a base of this kind of corporate base where they get a lower rate, but you're going to have 25, 30% occupancy from just those corporate contracts. And all the hotels have these kind of like a phone book of people in that area who have said, "Hey, this construction company is going out there, or this utility company, or this this consulting company," right? We do a lot of stuff with McKinsey and all these big consulting companies. Know we're going to be out there, and you just sign, you call up their corporate office, whatever, and you have a base of corporate. Figuring out the right mix of your revenue is going to be important because it's an opportunity for when upsells come. So, for example, we had a hotel that has a decent amount of leisure travel. So leisure travel is often the most expensive type of travel. So if you're going to a hotel and you're going there to visit friends, and you're staying there for a night or two, whatever else, a lot of walk-ins or that kind of thing, those are going to be typically the most costly type of business for the consumer, the best type of revenue for us as hotel owners. And so we had this one hotel where they were filling up their hotel so much so that they didn't have enough room for leisure. And so we had to look at the market and say, look, there's a lot of walk-in. They're near a water park. They're near some of these museums and stuff. And so we're filling the hotel with this low-rated corporate base. The corporate guys are paying $80, $99 a night, whereas leisure would be paying $150, $140 a night. But we're not leaving enough room for the leisure traveler to come through. And so, one of the ways we increased revenue there was we cut back a little bit on the corporate travel and we let additional leisure come in. The other way on the sales side, direct sales, let's say the hotel does not, they don't have a problem with mixes. They're just not getting enough business, right? Maybe they're suffering an occupancy. There's a couple of different things. One is really managing the CRM, having a CRM in place for your sales. So that means that the sales are going out, they're tracking every time they call someone, they're tracking when they don't have follow-ups. You can automate a lot of that, but actual direct sales, whether it's cold outreach or warm outreach, reaching out to previous clients, looking for referrals with them. I mean, that is a huge, huge component. For example, we have one hotel in southeast of Houston that's really close to NASA, right? The NASA headquarters were 2 miles from there. And we do a ton of government work with them. But that's all through direct outreach, reaching out to Navy training, and there's always military contractors and the NASA contractors themselves coming in and out, and that's all just direct relationships, calling them on the phone, saying, hey, here's how many rooms we have, whatever, negotiating that. But that's tracking it and all that. So those are a lot of the ways that you drive revenue to a hotel. There's some small things that I think have reputational benefits and are kind of longer term nurture campaigns. And that is, joining the local chamber of commerce. Oftentimes the chamber will have outreach on, hey, someone's hosting something, or there's business travel, where should we stay? And we're their preferred hotel hospitality partner. We often go to this is again a direct sales, but we'll go to youth sports, and one of our markets is very, very, very active, and tons of groups coming in with their parents and their coaches and their training is there for weekends. Something like 30 weekends out of the 52 have like sports kind of events going on in one of these markets, and so we'll reach out to the organizer and say, hey, maybe we can give you guys a favorable rate, and you come use ours. Sports teams are a little bit hard on rooms. They cram a lot of kids into rooms, and they eat a lot, but there's these direct outreaches that you can do to really drive revenue to the hotels from top line perspective. This is a select service. Luxury, I'll touch briefly on luxury. Luxury is along the same lines, obviously, but the area that luxury, I think, differentiates itself is in the amenities and how they think about amenities. So there's a really good case study we have. I can't mention the hotel, but it was, big resort hotel. Think, several hundred acres, a luxury brand, big hotel, 700 room, large type of footprint. And they had an issue with seasonality. So they had their winters were better. It was in a hot climate. So their winters, when it was cool, basically from September to April was great. People would travel there, all that kind of stuff. But their summers were just terrible. I mean, really, really bad. And so, what do you do there? It's a luxury kind of resort place. You're not calling up youth teams. You're not calling up, construction workers. Like, you need leisure travel, and a lot of it, to come in. And so they had we were part of we were the owner of the GPs there, and we had to take a look at what kind of amenities are people looking for in the summer. And so we ended up investing into massive amounts of summer amenities that would keep things cool. Think water park, think splash pad for the kids, think expanded, lazy river, think those kind of things on this kind of property. Yeah, maybe it cost 17 million or somewhere in that range to do this all. But what happened was that ended up softening almost all of our negatives in our down cycle. So even though we still weren't as full as during the main season, it softened the downside. We weren't losing money anymore during the really, really hot times. It ends up saving us 8, 9 million, whatever we spent on it, say almost half of that every single year, you're getting that back by just not having losses in that time. And so on the luxury side, we're really thinking critically about the amenities, right? That's why people go to luxury. The beds are kind of the same. The rooms are kind of small anyway. It's not too much different, but what are the amenities? You have to think carefully about what's going on with amenities. What are the market doing? What are other people doing that works? And what are they not doing that, customers are asking for? Luxury, a lot of it is amenity driven on how you're going to drive revenue. On marketing strategies for a select service, extended stay hotel, the things that people look at when they are staying at a hotel and this has changed probably in the last 20 years or so, which is they're looking a lot at the rating of the hotel. So looking at the internally, it's called the intent to recommend score or various other metrics. But when you go on, Google reviews and things like that will be important for guests. So you can't solicit, reviews, but making sure that all the things are in place and that you're responding, quickly to folks and all that is important. When you have a franchise hotel, most of the direct marketing, comes from the brands themselves. When you have an independent hotel, we have one independent hotel. A lot of the marketing you're doing is online marketing, and that's optimizing your website and making sure that there's easy ways for a lot of things. I think on what we train the director of sales are direct outreach, local negotiated rates, L&Rs matter. You're not going to be doing national campaign type of marketing for any of these kind of hotels. On the franchise side, most of the marketing you're doing is going to be local type of marketing. So you're going to events, you're going to little networking things, you're talking to the Chamber of Commerce, you're calling local groups. We do something called parking lot shopping, which is what we train our sales coordinators on, which is to drive around the parking lots of not just hotels, but just you see what kind of cars are parked there and call those companies up. So you're driving around all the parking lots saying, hey, I see a bunch of these Halliburton, trucks that are constantly parked, at the Home Depot, picking up stuff, and then they're, at the other hotels down the street. And so you just call Halliburton up, hey, we have, our hotels here. Here's what we're doing. Here's our rates. How can we, figure out something? But those, I think some of the strategy I covered before, that's really what you're doing on the franchise side. You're not doing a ton of national kind of marketing, all that. A lot of it is just local connections when you're trying to get people to stay there. Luxury side, it's even more probably where the brands do bear the brunt of the marketing. The main thing on the luxury side that you're trying to do, though, there are a couple of unique things that we've done in marketing that I think outside of all the normal stuff that brands do. When you have a luxury hotel, and we have one of these, this is what we do at the Waldorf in Utah. And we do this at one other hotel as well in Southern California. Because the amenities are such a big part of the hotel, the thought that we had was, well, what if we carved out amenities and sold a membership to the amenities portion separately, right? And so we thought, the people that are going to use that are all going to be locals, right? No one's going to buy the right to swim at the nice, Waldorf hotel pool, if they only come in every twice a year, they'll just stay at the hotel as a guest. But there's a lot of people in the area that want to use the amenities, want to get discounts maybe in the restaurant, want to use some of the fitness centers, go to the fitness classes, some of the pools, use the ski, amenities that we have. And so, and we're not the only hotel that does this, but we this is one thing that we've definitely pushed, which is let's market to the locals kind of this exclusive amenity membership where you pay, and the initiation fees are thousands of dollars. The monthly fees are more expensive than anyone should probably pay for, but they do. And you just pay for the amenities, the right to go there and have the amenities and use them. Because normally that's only for hotel guests, right? That's the classic. You can't just have someone walking in off the street and using all your amenities. And so you actually sell the amenity package to locals, and we have waiting lists. I mean, hundreds of people on that are, you really want to be able to use these amenities and have them in their backyard. And so that's been something that's really successful. It's basically a no cost to us other than using general amenities. When you're looking at the cost for that, it's so low. Guests are using it anyway. We're cleaning it anyway. Maybe having an extra 10 people in the pool versus 2 people, whatever is the marginal cost becomes almost nothing. It becomes almost all profit. But when you're a guest and you're staying at a hotel, I think that there are, and we've done a bunch of these guest surveys. We've talked with guests. We've been guests, a bunch of times at hotels. We love being in hotels, but we've thought about this a lot deeply. The term hospitality, I think, has unfortunately lost some of its value over the years, in that hospitality then just became, almost surgical. Right? Almost take the first part, almost hospital-like, in the way that there's a bed and there's some things there, and that's you're putting heads in beds, or like you say. And so the way we think about we think about a guest experience pretty deeply, especially when we're building a hotel or renovating a hotel or doing something where we have the ability to shape the guest experience from the get-go. But guests, at its core, guests want the hotels to be clean. And I think those are kind of if I think about like minimum requirements, you want the beds to be clean, you want the coffee to be hot, the breakfast to be ready, those kind of things. But beyond that, I think the way that there's beyond that, there's this element of human touch that guests really enjoy, and that I think is a big differentiator, for example, between the way that we manage hotels and perhaps some of our competition, which is we want on the select service side, we our mission statement for our hotel management company is to provide luxury service at limited service prices. And so and we take that very seriously. So that's going all the way through. We train people on 5 and 10, where when you're 10 feet away, you look up. When you're 5 feet away, you say good morning, good afternoon, sir, ma'am, whatever else it is. We're very mindful of when the guests ask for towels or extra crib for their kid, like all those kind of things. You want to be polite about it. You want to handle guests, obviously, just like any other kind of customer service company, can sometimes become angry about things. We got to train people in de-escalation and trying to make things work. But guests on a limited service side, I think that getting them in and out of the rooms quickly. So trying to get them when they come in, they check in. It's a quick process. We're being mindful of their needs, asking, do you want water? Can we, do you want some extra towels? Can we bring up, all those kind of things are simple ways that are basically no cost, but ways that you can add value to the guest. Make sure the rooms are clean and all that kind of stuff is a given. On the luxury side, it becomes kind of important to delight and surprise the guests. And we care about that on the select service side too, but there's just less opportunities to do that because people are coming in, you see them at 10 p.m. and they're gone by 8 a.m. the next day after they eat breakfast. But on the luxury side, we really try to think of ways to surprise and delight the guests. Think about ways that that they're not expecting, in ways that we can provide hospitality to them. So that's finding out what they're there for, right? If they're there for X, Y, or Z, try to maybe we bring up a little plate of fruit to them, or we give them a larger room if they're going to be there with kids. Those kind of things are things that we think about in the guest experience. Let me think just real quickly on some of the other trainings that we've done recently on value to guests. I think also on the guest side, being proactive on understanding their needs kind of goes along with that. So, for example, we have a hotel where there's an extended stay hotel, and there was a lady that came in there with she had her and her husband, they had a lot of kids, and we, as they were checking in, they didn't ask for it, but we said, hey, we have this larger room that has some suites, some lock-offs, a little bit easier to have the kids and you in kind of the same area. That's something that'd be of interest to you. Then when they get up there, we had them we had some little things because we get a lot of kids in this hotel just to the nature of where it's at. We keep some things on hand for little activities, things like that the kids can do. We in our market. So if you've ever been to a select service hotel, usually they have Doritos, some water bottles, some ice cream, whatever else. We've been trying to be mindful of what we put in there because the brand allows us to put a lot of different types of things in there. So in one area, there is a water park very close to our hotel. And, we put in there now a bunch of things catered to the water park, goggles, right? We put in sunscreen, we put a whole bunch of those kind of things in that didn't have it before, but that guests, and we'll point it out to the guests, hey, before you leave, do you need sunscreen? Do you need goggles? Do you need, pool toys or, whatever else? And often, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or, thanks, let me know. We've got a number of comments in our survey directly calling that out. Hey, they were mindful about that. On the lawyer side, it's very different. On the lawyer side, we have charging cables, right? We have extension cords. We have things that if they forgot to bring it, they can buy it right there instead of having to go out to Walmart or wherever else. So I think being able to anticipate the value or the needs of the guest and then meeting those preemptively is like at core of how you have the value to the guest.